Hello, everyone. Welcome to Flux Dev Meeting, June 7th, 2023. We have the agenda. We're getting started. And is there anyone who'd like to speak first? And as we get started, if there are any agenda items that you'd like to bring up throughout the course of the meeting, please go ahead and add them to the doc. We have a couple of regular repeating items on here. The current GA dev focus. I'm not sure that these things are still relevant. Bootstrap, yeah.
Bootstrap GA is mostly done. We just hopefully like there will be a 2.0.0 release soon. So like if this RC doesn't have any problems, so it should be on track. So I guess we should rename it to Helm GA because that's the next milestone that we want to do. But Hidden needs to be here for that because he's mostly working on that. So yeah. Sunny, do you want to take up the notification controller refactoring?
I wanted to discuss a problem I realized. So we're trying to remove the reconsiders for alert and provider. So when you do that, the existing alert and provider objects have finalizer and status data in those objects. And if you suddenly go to a new version of notification controller that doesn't have the reconsider, there's nobody to remove the finalizer. And you try to delete those objects, it'll just get stuck. So one solution I thought of, maybe like a multi-stage release, where first we do a version of notification controller with the same API, P1 Beta 2 API, but the new event handler, which ignores the status conditions of alert and provider. And then in this version itself, the reconsiders will not do what it's doing, like it's doing a lot of validation today. Instead of that, it will remove the finalizer and status of any existing alert and provider. And then in a subsequent release, we will have the new API, P1 Beta 3, and then remove the reconsiders as well. Does that make sense?
What do we need the finalizers for anyway, if we're not consuming them in any way?
In notification controller, I don't think it is needed because normally it's required when your object has some other things to happen before deleting them. But in case
but we're not doing that there, right?
We're not doing that. It should not even exist, finalizer. But
so
I think
what's adding them?
The controller.
It was controller added it. And I think the reason behind adding it was to have some metrics counter. I think Stefan added it a long time back when somebody reported that we don't collect metrics for certain objects. When they are added.
So you're talking about like a migration path where like I have these objects with finalizers on my cluster, I upgrade Flux, and then the finalizers are still there, but no reconcilers there. So it's like an intermediate temporary problem.
So then obviously the question is, what happens if you don't upgrade through this path? Do you get left behind and you just have to prune the finalizers yourself? That's probably okay.
I mean, yeah, we can tell them to remove the finalizers themselves. Nothing will happen because
I don't have a better idea.
Nothing happens because the deletion timestamp won't be set, so it doesn't matter if the finalizer is removed.
It'll just wait for someone to delete it. And you have to
maybe we can add this to the Flux CLI to facilitate it.
I thought of that, but this seemed easier.
But I
maybe
mean,
have like
Kingdon
a
has a valid
flux
point
fix
when you skip
command,
that
right?
release.
Yeah, where things like this will go. This might not be the last thing that we need. I think that we skirted around really deftly when we had the issue of upgrading to server-side apply. There were so many things that came up. If you have Flux V1 installation, you know, things would be left behind because of the way that Flux V1 applied them to the cluster. And I think that we managed to get out of that without a Flux fix command, but it's probably still on the table for something like this if we need it. Anyway, I don't think it's a big deal to remove the finalizers, and we're still talking about things that happen if you upgraded from Flux prior to 2.0.0. So as long as we have that boundary in front of us, things are different. You know,
I think it get really tricky if, like, I mean, it seems harmless, but I don't know. I feel like it can get tricky if people don't read the changelog properly, or they don't follow the exact migration path that you're proposing right now.
Or
I mean, it should be a flag, like it shouldn't be done by default, of course. When you do it to the CLI and we add something like force or whatever to the delete command.
Or another thing, like we don't need to remove the reconsider immediately. They can still stay in the new version, which has a new API, but it'll just do the delete the finalizer, delete the status, but don't do anything else. Can do that.
Yeah, but what if
How long do we want to keep that?
what if you what if in, like, right now we have notification controller 1.0 dash something RC whatever, and then in the next two versions you have this dummy reconciler which doesn't do anything, just deletes the finalizer, and then in the third next version you have this you remove the reconciler completely, and then someone directly jumps to that third version, like they skip the first two versions which have the dummy reconciler, then they would have to make sure that they manually delete the finalizers from the objects, right? So, I mean, that's the only concern that I have. That's all.
If we do that,
Station-
I think we should make sure to add this to the FAQ already. Like people will come to us and ask, "Hey, my objects aren't being deleted, staying and terminating."
yeah,
whatever.
it's a funnel for sure. And if we do something like this that gets 80% of those questions to go away, and another 10% knocked out by people that think to read the FAQ, that yeah.
Or in general, like I don't know about others, but when I do any software, when I upgrade from one version to another, I ensure that the previous version has the latest patch, so that if there was any migration, that happens, and then I go to the next minor version. We can include it in upgrade notes, something.
But I think our promise is that you can skip releases, like even minor releases. Has been
It's not
so far.
It's not something breaking. It should be fine.
I was thinking like a flux fix command typically would not work for most of the things that we might need to do with a flux fix command, because those things would be in Git. But for this in particular, there's no Git representation of finalizers, so maybe that will help.
That's one of the major thing I wanted to discuss. There are some other things which is related to one of the changes Sanskar was working on, related to adding insecure hello HTTP flag in the controller for blocking HTTP traffic. So in RFC 004, where we discussed, or we we describe how we will block HTTP traffic using a flag. In that, we only talk about how we'll notify or try to present this to a user that you're trying to send a HTTP traffic which is blocked. And the way this is done is through status conditions. But now with objects that don't have status, we need to define another way. So the only way is events. So wanted to discuss, does anybody have any opinion on that? Do we update the RFC to state that for objects that don't have status, we reflect the situation in the event of the object? Any opinion?
So like it will emit a Kubernetes event. So like let's say the provider has like basically a provider has an HTTP URL and it's blocked at a controller level. So then the event handler will emit a Kubernetes event saying that it didn't work because HTTP connections are blocked.
On that provider or the respective alert?
Yeah, yeah.
I was thinking about it today. Should a provider also have an event in addition to alert? It felt like no, because an alert has one provider, and events are related to an alert. So if you have to notify or if you have to tell something, just tell it on the respective alert, and the user can interpolate and find the respective provider. So maybe don't need to emit an event on the provider, just alert should be fine. Any other opinion?
I don't understand. Do you mean, could you come again? I did not understand what you said.
So an alert has one provider. So, and the event handler or the event is associated with an alert, not with a provider. So when you have a failure, you can notify or you can emit an event on the alert. And the user can see that alerts for events for this alert fail. And with the error, they can see that it's something to do with the provider, the respective provider. You don't have to emit an event on the provider itself. I was thinking of in terms of like a deployment and the config map or secret. If something is wrong in the config map or the secret, you don't emit an event on those. You emit an event on the deployment saying something is wrong in your configuration because of which your app is failing. And the provider is kind of a configuration of the alert.
So you would only see an error when something fails because the alert fires and it can't reach the provider, which is the case anyway. So I guess that makes sense.
No, but in this case, you would only see the error when something actually happens. So if you keep all the reconcilers and you keep all the statuses and everything, the moment you create the object, you see it on the status, on the object status, that this is invalid because HTTP is blocked at a controller level. But this will basically happen for every alert that needs to be sent to a provider. An event will be an error event will be emitted saying that this alert could not be forwarded to a provider because HTTP connections are blocked. So wouldn't that I don't know, like that would be a lot of events. So that would be a lot of events.
Usually events are delimited. So the middleware that does the deduplication, it happens before the event handler gets executed. So no, there won't be a lot if it's the same event. If it's unique event, then yes.
Wait, we're talking about a Kubernetes event, right? Not a Flux event.
Both. So Flux event leads to a Kubernetes event, right? I mean, if it's the same Flux event, then there'll be just one Kubernetes event for it for 5 minutes. Any new ideas? Any objection?
As long as we don't create another situation where it's like, you have to look at the Helm chart to find out what's wrong. And you need a special tool like Flux events to help you find Helm chart issues. When you misconfigure a Helm repository, you sometimes have this condition where the Helm repository itself doesn't tell you what's wrong. It just tells you, go look at the Helm chart. And depending on what kind of interface you have, that may or may not be something you can do easily. So it doesn't sound like we're creating another one of those.
I guess since there are no extra events on the provider, we would basically deliver the full message, right? Like we can't see the secrets from this provider. We'll go check since it's just one event that we're emitting for everything, like errors on the alert and errors on the provider. So it shouldn't create that situation.
Okay, that's all related to this. Oh, there is one more idea. Wait, there are like too many ideas. Matthias has done something related to this. So the event handling pipeline that we have in notification controller, we have like middlewares, and then at the end there is the event handler. And sometimes even in the middlewares, maybe we need to log things, or maybe we don't have the need now, but maybe we want to emit an event, a Kubernetes event. And the current code has the logger like explicitly add all the data, like this is the alert, name of the alert on the involved object, namespace of the involved object. Those things are like added again and again. So a few days ago, I was trying to simplify it. Maybe I added a helper that will just given an event or given an event and alert, it will add all those metadata on the logger. And then when you use the logger, you don't have to add those things explicitly. I was thinking of adding a middleware, and then today I saw Matthias already added a middleware which injects a logger. So now it will be similar to how we write reconcilers, where every reconciliation request comes with a context, and then we extract the logger from the context. So in this case, every middleware and the event handler will receive a context, and you can extract the logger from the context, which will have all the details about the event, involved object, and the alert if it's relevant in the context. So the logging code would be simplified. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah. Like, so you were saying that most places are like adding the reconciler kind, the namespace, right? That's like the biggest part that gets added everywhere. So like in the middleware that parses the event payload and injects the event struct pointer in the context, we could also enhance the logger there, like, because you might want to log even earlier, because like we have like 3 or 4 middlewares now, right? And you might want to log something. I'm wondering, I'm thinking about like how early should be this injection, and like should be on the same level, like the logger and the event, or just like right now, for example, the logger in the very beginning, and like and down the road on the event extractor middleware, like we also enhance the logger. So what do you think?
So I was thinking like we already have a middleware that injects the event in the context. And then this logger injector needs the event. So let's do the event injector in the context first, and then do the logger injector, and then do the rest of the things.
Yeah,
Else the logger injector will again need to decode the event.
yeah. So yeah, the order is clean up metadata,
Right.
log rate limit middleware, and then yeah, the one that like logs if the event was rate limited or not. And which one adds the I forgot the one that adds the event itself. Event, yeah, let me find it here. It's the cleanup metadata one, which is the first one. So yeah, we could maybe change the name. So right now, the very first middleware is called cleanup metadata, and that's the one that injects the event on the context. And because we also need a logger there, we could maybe,
do it
I don't know,
in the
give a
state.
better name and
Mhm.
inject a logger there as well with already with the event fields, I guess. Does that sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. But I think also Max mentioned that we should probably do this on a separate PR, right? So
I
we can
would
do it separate.
prefer it so we don't intermix different things into
Yeah,
the same
it's a good
PR or
idea.
even commit.
So I think it's probably, so it's, since it's much smaller, I think I'm gonna, if you're okay, Sunny, can I file that one for these logger changes?
Mhm.
I can file that one. It's probably smaller. We can, and then I can do the Google PubSub one on top of it, like after it's merged. It's just because there's a debug log on mine, so it's not a big deal. But it's nice that triggered this discussion, like this improvement on logger. I think it's a very good one. Okay.
And one more thing I needed others' opinion. So the Google PubSub provider in the current implementation, or maybe you have updated this now, it was not accepting any credentials or any token. So it was
I changed it already.
using workload identity. So currently in none of our providers, we have this workload identity, like all of the providers accept some token or webhook URL. So would it be fine if we add a behavior where for like Azure or GCP related providers, when you don't provide any of these credentials or tokens, it will try to use workload identity as a fallback?
Yeah. I already updated the pull request and also the docs. So basically, I'm retrieving a JSON credential from the token field of the secret. So if the secret reference is specified on the provider object, then it's assumed to have a JSON credential on the token field, and that's what's used. Like I already changed the code as well. There's basically like a Google option for JSON creds, and if they're passed, then I use that option. Otherwise, I don't. And basically, so if you don't, what happens is that the automatic authentication methods of the Google libraries will kick in, and that means trying workload identity, for example. So yeah, I left all that documented already.
Okay. Just wanted to see if others have any opinion about that. Sounds fine to me.
It's the best we can, like, it's the world-class solution for us.
I think we'll have to do similar things for Azure providers.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
Look later. That's
good.
it from me.
Ansgar,
That's
you
fine.
had another topic.
Yeah. So I'm in the process of adding proxy support to Git repositories, so you can specify the secret reference on the Git repository object itself, and the secret would contain the URL and the basic authentication credits for the proxy. So there are two things we need to discuss. One is that how do we so like Helm repositories only have one secret ref, and that one secret ref is used for basic auth and TLS auth. But there are other objects which might allow multiple secret refs. So before we go ahead with this, we need to decide how to align all our secret references across all our objects. So do we have one secret ref which use one secret ref for everything, and we define a big contract for that, or do we have multiple secret refs for specific things? And the other thing is that uh, this kind of touches upon Paolo's RFC about trust store and how you need to configure TLS and SSH for different objects. So basically, yeah, how do we go about secret references in Flux objects?
I think it would be hard to discuss this without Stefan.
Yeah.
I was thinking it would be kind of a breaking change for whole CI repository, right? If we change the behavior, like move separate cert secret to one secret.
I mean, if we decide to do that, we could decide not to do that.
Because that's the only exception. Other APIs are fine; they have one secret. Or maybe you can just not break things.
Git repository also has two secret refs. I mean, one secret ref is a wrapper, but it does. It has a
What's
secret
the
ref.
other one?
The other one is for commit verification. It stores the GPG key to verify commits. But yeah, we can wait for Stefan.
I mean, would it make sense to prepare an RC for that change? So as soon as Stefan is there, we have something to discuss.
There is an RFC, not exactly about that, but somewhat. Let me find it.
Mhm.
This is what Paolo wrote up for how we configure TLS and SSH across Flux.
Yeah. So this should be the base of the whole discussion.
So if you wanna, I mean, we could postpone the entire thing and just get this RFC in, or at least at least like have like an informal understanding about this RFC before we proceed. But I guess this RFC should be discussed before we do anything.
Thinking about the verification secret that Git repository has, it seems like these secret that we are interested in now, the proxy or the cert secret and the basic author, whatever, yeah, those are like connection related secrets, and verification is verification secret. So proxy, cert, those seem like they should be together. that can be one way of categorizing them. And if you see it in that way, OCR repository is an exception again in that way. But in OCR repository, the verification again has another secret, right? For cosine verification. That's again nested reference.
We could deprecate search secret ref, right? Just tell users to modify their existing secret, the primary secret ref, and we could like support it for a few versions, and then when we do an eventual bump of the API version for OCR repository, drop that field. We could do that, right?
Okay. I think you can implement in the secret itself, the main secret for now. And we can continue discussing more.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it from my side. I mean, I guess we need more people to discuss this to get a better consensus. So.
Anything else anyone would like to discuss? All right, then I guess we can wrap it up early. Thanks everyone for joining, and see you on Slack or next week.
Bye guys.
Bye-bye.
Here, bye.